The Empower Hour series was created for all of the women out there who have done everything they were supposed to do in life and are struggling to discover what's next. I see you. You know there's so much more out there, but you just don't know how to align with what's next for you. Well, you're not going to struggle anymore. It's time for you to create your new path and fall in love with your life over and over again. See that badass woman over there who has discovered what's next for her? Let's go ask her to share how she did it and become inspired. And if she can discover what's next, so can you. Hi, everybody. It's Suzanne Orlando. Welcome again to another episode of the EmpowHER Hour series. Tonight, we have an extremely amazing guest named Larissa Poree with us tonight. And Larissa has an inspirational story. And it all started out, she is a mom of two teenage daughters, age 18 and 16. She is a wife. She is an incredible, inspirational human. And she started out in human resources. So I'm going to let her tell her story, as we often do here on this show. Larissa, welcome to the show. I'm so grateful to have you here. And I just want to start out by saying Larissa is another guest that I met through the app Clubhouse, because right? I mean, you never know who you're going to meet and who's going to inspire you and whose story you're going to resonate with. So Larissa, why don't you take us back, to how it all started for you? You started your career in human resources. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
OMG, I'm so happy to be here. Okay, so human resources. So human resources was my thing. Like, I never even saw myself doing anything different. I was very fortunate. I started my career in San Francisco. That's where I'm originally from. And I was working at a university in the beginning. So I was working at this really great university and I loved it. And one day I went to this, actually it was a weekend workshop. And I met this guy who was a VP of this huge corporation in San Francisco. And we just really hit it off. Like, I was really young. I was in my early 20s. And he said, you know what? I saw your presentation and I think you should consider a job in HR. I think you should consider a career in HR. And I thought, what's HR? I didn't know what the heck. And I'm like, what is that? Who is this HR person? and that was back in the day before we could just Google everything. So I literally had to go to a library.
That was our Google. That was the Google back then.
Yes. Remember encyclopedias? Oh,
yes.
My goodness.
Or the card, what do they call them? The card catalog, where you pulled out the drawer.
Oh my gosh. And then you would go like this and figure out which one, where you go find it in the library in those stacks. And so I spent that weekend at the library looking at what the heck is HR. And so I studied all these things like, oh my gosh, that sounds like my jam. And so the next, like that Monday, this was so hilarious, Suzanne. The next Monday I called them, I go, I went to the library. I see HR is amazing, and I want to be the HR director.
So I'm not even entry level. I'm going right to the top.
Yeah, I want to be the HR director. And he said, oh, okay. You know what? How about this? Since you don't know anything about HR, this is just all research. I think I was all of 23 or something like that. He goes, how about I give you a job as the receptionist in HR, and then we can take it from there. And it was really awesome because he actually he mentored me for the next several months. And then I was able to move up, not to director, but definitely was able to move on and do other things. And then eventually I left that company and then started working in Silicon Valley, because the Bay Area. So I worked there as a recruiter and employee relations, and I loved that so much. And then moved into higher education and was HR manager there for a few years at one of the UCs here in Northern California. And I really enjoyed that. And then some things happened in about 2016, I transitioned into, 2012, and then I transitioned back into corporate. And then here's what happened of what made me transition into entrepreneurship to what I do today as a life insurance broker. I was talking to a girlfriend and I thought, gosh, I love HR and I never saw myself doing anything else but HR. But HR has changed so much and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then my girlfriend says, no, Larissa, I don't think HR changed. I think you changed.
Okay.
And that hit me. Have you ever felt like you had cold water thrown in your face?
Yeah.
That's what
like
it
the
felt
aha
like
moment.
Me. Yes. Yeah. I was like, you are correct. And that's when I started to get really intentional about what I wanted to do moving forward. I knew that I didn't want to go back to school. That was not something that was in the cards for me, but I wanted to do something that was in alignment with my value system, that was in alignment with just being able to use the skills that I currently have. And during that time, I had lost my brother to suicide.
Yeah.
And I knew that whatever I did was going to have to make an impact. It would have to be a meaningful connection for me and my clients. And so it just was a beautiful transition for me to go into an industry of financial services as a life insurance broker, specifically for final expenses. And so that's what brought me. That's how we met. Because I think if I were still in my corporate job, I would have been at work. I wouldn't even been able to be on Clubhouse.
You wouldn't have been on Clubhouse, right? Right.
Yes.
Right.
And so that's what brings me here today. And so I've been doing that now for a while, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. The people I get to meet, but also the other things it has afforded me to be able to do in terms of a lifestyle.
Yeah, of course. I think that's so, I love this story for so many reasons. And, you know, particularly going back to what you said when you were like, I feel like human resources has changed. And it was pointed out to you that that probably hasn't changed, but maybe you're ready for that shift. Maybe you're ready. And that cold water in the face moment that you experienced where you were like, yeah, it might not be human resources. It might be me. Maybe I'm ready for what's next. I'm ready for what's new for me. And I want to focus on that for a second, because a lot of our viewers are in a similar can be in a similar pivotal moment where they're recognizing that what they once started out to do, even if it was something they were totally passionate about, our lives change, we grow, we change, we emerge, right? And what once served us, it might still feel okay, but sometimes it's not met with the same passion that it once was. And one of the things I think that a lot of people struggle with, in particular women, is recognizing that they need a change, or they need to make a shift. But number one, maybe not knowing what that shift is, which is where I kind of come into the picture. But even if I know what that shift is, there's a hesitancy and there's a reluctance and there's a fear, because I don't know what's on the other side. I've done this career, or I've been in this space for so long. I know what to expect. I know what to do. I know the players. I know the role I'm playing. This sounds really good, but I'm so terrified to step into this space. What is it? First of all, did you struggle with any of those things? And
I'm going to tell.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I mean, to cut you off. Go ahead.
Nope. I was going to say, if I was going to ask if you struggled with any of those things, and if you did, what helped you to move past that?
Okay, so did I struggle with any of those things? I definitely had a hard time wrapping my head around what it is I wanted to do. So this is what I know for sure. No one wakes up and says, oh, I'm going to be a life insurance agent. No one just does, because it's so unsexy. It's like the least sexy career profession you can possibly find, but it's rewarding. And also, I was in my late 40s when I made this transition. So
I love that you said that.
Yeah, yes. I was in my late 40s. It wasn't like I was a 20, 30 something, because when you're in your 20s, you're thinking you're not old enough. And then by the time you're in your 40s, you think you're too old, right? 40s and beyond. And none of it is true. None of it is true. It's literally just a paradigm. And I think having been in HR for so long, and having trained and done development and hired people from all levels throughout the various organizations that I work with, what I saw, the common factor is, for if you want to move forward, it's just to get started. And so what I did was I took an assessment of what my skills are and what do I like to do, who do I like to work with, like what population of people do I like to work with, and then also what type of money that I want attached to that. And then of course my value system being the foundation of it all. And that's how I made my decision. Like literally, it was not super strategic. It wasn't anything where I said, okay, I have to like make a pros and cons. I focused everything on what worked for me. Because the thing is too, by the time you reach, and hopefully, young ladies are learning this earlier than say my generation. I am Generation X.
Yes,
but by the time you make it, hey, Generation X, hey, by the time you reach our age, say in their 40s, you realize that you literally do not give an entire F about what anyone has to say about anything you have to do. Particularly after losing my brother, because this is something that I live my life by. I say, I don't know if life is long. I don't know if it's short. I don't know if it's the only life I have, but it's the life I have right now.
That's right.
Since it's the life that I have right now, I'm going to do all that I want to do in this lifetime to be used up till there's nothing else available in my spirit. So it's time for me to leave this particular lifetime. And so I
Mm-hmm.
made my decisions based on that. What do I want? What kind of life do I want? Who do I want to impact? And that's how I made my decision. And it wasn't easy in the sense that, it's a little bit of an identity shift
Yep.
because I've been an HR professional and that's what people knew me for. So there was some identity shifting that I required for myself to do. And that just those things that I just spoke about, just seeing what is important to me right now. Who do I want to serve? What type of
Yeah.
money do I want to go? And I want everyone to walk away from feeling like they won, myself, my client, and the company that I represent. And so that's literally how I made my decision. And for the most part, I cannonballed in because I learned another thing about the cannonball, right? Because I was a person that dabbled, like I would go, okay, maybe I'll check this thing
Like
out.
you put the toes in, you had, yep.
Yeah. And when you just dip your toe in, you only get wet. There's
Yes.
no impact. You
Yep.
get wet. But when you make a decision to cannonball, everyone gets affected. Everyone shifts.
Yeah.
Everyone feels the vibration and the movement for that ripple from that
Oh my God,
cannonball.
that's so true.
Right?
Yes.
So all the people, my family, the trajectory of my family's life has changed. I'm able to spend more time with my husband. We've been married for over 21, oh shit, how long have we been married? We've been married for a couple of decades. And then
yes,
we
I
have
lose track
children,
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So being able to spend more time with my family and my friends. So everyone in your circle, everyone in your realm of influence gets affected when we make the decision to cannonball. So I knew I didn't want to just dip my toe in. I wanted to cannonball so I can feel the ripple effects and that other people will be positively affected by the choices that I made. So that was literally how I made my decision.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And I love that, it's such an important key factor is you said, I wasn't in my 20s. I wasn't like figuring things out. I was in my 40s. Like that's,
Yes.
and that's, I think that's where I know, I when I turned 40, I feel like that my 40s have been my best decade because of that. I don't care what people think. I'm not out for impressing other people. I'm out for what am I creating in my life and how am I shifting to make my life the way I want it to be. And that's so powerful. And I love that you're aligned on that same page. But the fact that I think we get to a point where we're like, well, I'm this far into my career. I should just kind of go for it and keep up till retirement. And that's okay. That's okay if you're in that space and you want to do that. But it doesn't mean that you can't make a shift into something else or make a shift into something in addition to what you're doing too. Correct. As long as you're a hold of you, right? The cannonball analogy, I love that because I think a lot of people might say, well, what if I do the cannonball and it has the ripple effect in a not so great way? But I think that more times than not, the cannonball does have a wonderful ripple effect because you're stepping into what feels good to you. You're stepping into what feels right for you.
Absolutely. And, as it relates to the cannonball, I always say, you read different books, or if you're someone like me, that you just listen to your friends who have amazing friends in your life, and they encourage you because they love you, but they're also warning you like, oh, you should have 6 months of income left, or, set aside or a year. And I always say all of that is arbitrary. You have to do what works for you. You figure out what works for you. Maybe 6 months, it may be 1 month, it may be a year, it may mean nothing. But by all means, not to use it as a crutch to keep you from moving forward. Because oftentimes it's easy to let our fear grip us and go, but what? I like this little cushy lifestyle I have, or I like, having this vacation, or I like to have the guaranteed income, all the things that we can use or that we can make excuses for to hijack what we really want. So it is really great to be clear, I think, to being clear about what you want and knowing that impact will be great because number one, you're taking a chance on yourself. And number two, you're living in integrity with what it is you really want. And that matters.
It does. It absolutely matters. And how wonderful that you are able to, wake up every day and live the life that you created, not on anybody else's agenda, but just your own, and I know that also comes with, we as entrepreneurs, sometimes from the outside, it looks so glorious and wow, they can do, but I know it also is work, right? It doesn't mean that I just stepped into this wonderful life and it's so cushy and rainbow and unicorns. It is on some level, but there's also a lot of work that goes into it as well.
Yes, the work. That's it, the commitment. It's about being committed to your commitment, right? Whatever the
Yeah.
thing is you say you want, being committed to that thing, not just when it feels good. And I think most people probably know this in every area. If you even had like Girl Scout cookies, you have to be committed, even when no one's walking through that line, right?
Yeah.
But being committed to your commitment. And that's what being an entrepreneur really does teach us. If this is something you want, you have to be commitment. You have to be committed to your commitment.
I love that. And even before, when we were sidebarring, before we were recording this, Larissa, I feel like that commit to your commitment, the cannonball analogy. You have so many great, just the phrases that you use. I feel like they're so relatable, and I just love them. Committing to your commitment, because listen, there are days, sometimes I know I'll get up sometimes and I'll have, whether I'm seeing clients or doing these kinds of interviews, which I love, but sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to lay in bed, or what if I were still in my traditional like 9-to-5 job? What if I was still doing that? Wouldn't that be great to just do that and not have to worry about anything after the fact? And I think about that for a split second. And then I say to myself, no, because although this is a lot of work, and although I'm exhausted at the end of the day, it's all for good reason. Because who are we impacting? Who are we connecting with? Who's listening to this conversation and saying, this is what it took for me to shift, or, whatever the case, even though it's hard, committing to your commitment and working through the hard, because it's worth it, right?
It's so worth it. I'm telling you, I was saying how there are things that I'm doing right now, opportunities that have opened up for me that I would not have ever been able to wrap my brain around doing something. I have a television show coming out that I never would have, it would not have even been on the menu because I was so focused on building my career. I know, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Yes, I'm so excited.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I know this would not have happened sitting in my office dealing with HR shit, like dealing with adults not knowing how to treat each other. That would not have happened. I'm like, hello, last time I checked, we were all at least 18. So what's going on here? Right? Yeah,
middle school's over. Let's go.
Correct. Let's be done with that. Yeah. So you're right. When we make a decision to be committed, right? I tell myself, Larissa, because I have those moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I would much rather sleep in, especially my husband, he works. So where we live, he commutes to the Bay Area. So we live in the San Francisco Bay Area. So it's a pretty lofty commute. But sometimes when he has the day off, I'm like, oh, I just want to sleep in with him and just cuddle. But I'm like, no, I have something I have to do. We have on our schedule that we're going to get together on this time, on this day. So that's what I'm going to commit to, because right now, this thing that I have that I committed to, that's what's important in this moment.
That's right.
So yes. So there are those moments when I personally just want to like veg out and watching maybe a Netflix marathon or something, anything but the task in front of me.
Yes.
But then I remind myself, even like some of the most challenging days as an entrepreneur are so much better than some of the best days I've had working for someone else.
Oh, I love that.
That's what keeps me going. One of the things that helps to keep me going.
Yeah. So even the most challenging days and the exhausting days as working for yourself is so far superior than those.
Correct.
The best days you can remember when you were in HR. And I want to, without even, I love these interviews because things come up that we're not anticipating. So I love how you spoke about, sometimes I do want to sleep in, or I do want to binge some Netflix shows that I've been looking to binge, but I recognize that keeping up with my commitments, committing to my commitments and keeping up with what I need to do for my job, my career that I've created for myself is probably more important than that. On the flip side, there's a lot of people, I know a lot of women that I speak to when they come at my door, they get on the phone with me and they're like, "Hey, help me transition into the next step in my life." One of the things that I think it's important to have downtime. I don't want to dismiss that, because we need that as part of a reset to get our batteries recharged. However, I hear people all the time saying, I want to do this, but I don't have time. And then we talk about where you're using your time. And people will say, well, I get home from work, I'm exhausted. I do, I feed the kids, I put the kids to bed. And then I just binge and I need to catch up on my Netflix or my shows, and 2 hours go by and then I go to sleep. I'm not saying that that's not okay, because we all need to work in some downtime here or there. But what if you binge watched your shows for an hour, and then for the next hour, you poured into something that felt good to you? You know what I mean? And I think you saying I could choose to do this, but I'm choosing to do this, reminding us all that we have choices. We have choices.
We
right?
do. And, and one of the things, absolutely. And I've kind of figured out a way that works for me is I break my week into 2 weeks, right? So Thursday is my day off. I've used Thursday as my day off. So Wednesday, Tuesday, and Monday, that's 1 week for me. And then Thursday is off. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the second week. So I am able to get 2 in my head, right? So
yes.
I'm able to get 2 weeks in 1 week, and that works for me. So Thursday, I just take the day off and I do nothing. Like, I don't even know, like the last few Thursdays, I'm pretty sure that I didn't even bother to like cleanse my skin and moisturize. Like, I'm pretty sure I didn't. I was like, this is my day, and I just hang around the house, or I'll go now things are starting to open up a little bit more in California. I'll go meet a girlfriend, we'll go for a walk, we'll do something, but it's my day just to be me. And then, typically I schedule time in with my husband to do date nights, and he does a monthly date night with or date day with our girls, which they're out doing that right now. And so you start to figure out, and actually you learn to manage yourself within the constructs of time a lot better, because yes. I tell people that no one is surprised that there's 24 hours in a day. Like, we didn't just wake up today and go, oh my God, there's 24 hours in a day. Yesterday there were 36. No.
Right.
There have been 24 hours in a day since the very moment you were born.
That's right.
And you cannot manage time, but we can manage ourselves within those constructs of time. And Correct. So that's what I have learned to master, being able to manage myself and get done the things that require my attention. And then also delegating things that don't require my attention, even if those are things that I enjoy doing, but delegating those to someone else. And that makes a difference, so that we can have more time for downtime. And then also, we're not as stressed and pressed when we're doing things that do require our attention. We can just get it done, and knowing that someone else is going to go do grocery shopping, or someone else is going to come over and clean, or someone else is going to make those phone calls for me, because the things that require my attention, being a wife, being a mom, because those are really important to me, and showing up wholeheartedly for my clients, which is also very important to me. I can do that with all my heart and all my intention in that moment. And those other things can be delegated.
Absolutely. And what I hear when you break it down that way is I hear that, what am I willing to sacrifice? And sacrifice comes from a lot of different things, right? Am I willing to sacrifice? Am I willing to invest in something, whether it's time-wise or whether it's financially, that's going to offset my time in some way, shape, or form, so that I can pour into something that feels whole to me? I love the phrase zone of genius, right? So if your zone of genius is in the financial area, right, and your zone of genius is working with clients or doing what you need to do for your business, and you could go grocery shopping, or you could, but if I could offset that to create more time for myself, and whether that means more downtime, whether that means more family time, whether that means more time I'm pouring into my clients or my business, well, there are people out there who their zone of genius might be in the area that you could hire them to help you with, right? And it's all about coming to that and relinquishing yourself of that guilt, where as women, a lot of times we feel like we have to do everything. We have to take it all on. And if I delegate, or if I do this, I'm losing finances, or I'm not good enough, or I should be able to hold all the balls in the air at the same time. So even reminding us of that, Larissa, I think that is so crucial, what you just said. I delegate stuff that might help me in some way, shape, or form. And by delegating, what else are you doing? You're you're supporting somebody else when you delegate too.
Correct.
It's that
Correct.
cannonball effect again.
It literally is the cannonball effect, right? Because that ripple affects everyone in your sphere of influence. And, and that's so important. I know everyone's heard this. I'm pretty sure you've heard this about, the overflow, right? You give from your overflow. And I'm really clear, and I've taught my daughters the same, that what's inside the cup belongs to me. What's inside your cup belongs to you. No one else. Yep. No one else gets to drink from inside your cup. You are only getting the overflow, the end. And that's going to have to be enough. And that's plenty, because once that overflow happens, that means I'm full. And so now I can share with you. But if I'm doing everything and spraying myself over here and doing this, there's no time for that cup to even get to the point of overflow. And so I think that's really important for women to remember, because it's an unhealthy narrative for us to think that we can put on our superwoman cape and be there and be all things to all people and try to please all these people. It's never going to work. And we're just setting ourselves up to feel, blue and discouraged and all the things that taking on all those identities that were never meant for us to carry in the first place.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. That is, it's so true. And once we learn how to let go of that really false, those false expectations that we should be able to carry it all in the air, that really opens up so much for us. I think, we're able to see so much more. It's almost like we have blinders on when we think we can handle it all,
Whew, I absolutely know that I cannot.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I do not need to try to go down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important for our viewers to come to terms with, no matter how many times we've heard it, because at some point you're going to hear this message that you've heard a million times, and it's going to click the way that you had that conversation and you were like, human resources is changing. And they're like, nope, not true. You're the one who's changing for the best reasons. And that's when it clicked for you. So hearing these messages over and over and over again, there's a reason why they keep coming up. There's a reason why we hear these so much, because at some point we're going to hear them a little bit differently. And that's going to be the moment where we choose to make that pivot.
Correct. Because there are different things going on in our lives, right? For me, I feel like losing my brother to suicide was definitely a catalyst for me to really look at my life, big picture view, and not just the daily survival of going to work and doing the things that required my attention at work, and then coming home and doing the same mundane things. Important, but also not fulfilling something in me that I know that was meant for me to do. So yes, because we hear those messages, but we hear them at different times in our lives when they really mean something different.
Right. Absolutely. And I want you to talk for a minute, Larissa, about that catalyst in your life when you lost your brother to suicide, because I think that's another piece of your story. And I know you touched on it, but I think that enabled you, because there's something else that you're doing connected to that, correct?
Yes.
I want you to share that, because this is so important.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share this, because it's very important to me. So I lost my brother in 2000. His name is Ernest. I lost my brother Ernest in 2016, and he's my younger brother, 2 years younger than me. And I'm telling you, my God, Suzanne, my whole heart. I remember telling one of my best friend, I remember telling her, it hurts to breathe. Like, I don't even want to breathe. Like, I don't want to be here. If I have to be here without my brother, I don't want to be here. And folks would ask, what can we do to help you? Well, if you can't bring my brother back, there's absolutely nothing you can do for me. And I had reached a point where I was totally content with, or resolved, not content, but resolved to the fact that I would just never be happy. I would just never have joy, that this was my life forever. Right. And I remember thinking that there has to be more. And actually, this is really, okay, so after I was dealing with this, like this, there has to be more in life, because there's no way that people who lose their loved ones by suicide live the rest of their life feeling like they can't go on. Because I would read about them, and I would read articles, and I would hear that there were people who survived suicide. And so I started going to support groups, really.
Great.
It's what did it for me. I started going to support groups, and, just going to every week, I would just show up at a support group, but it didn't change how I was feeling about my brother right away. one night I went to bed and I literally can remember like it was yesterday. I would cry myself to sleep on so many occasions, just like crying, 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 crying. And I was very fortunate to have, supportive people, my husband and just other folks in my life. But I remember one night I went to bed crying and I woke up because I remember crying like this has to be something. There has to be a better way. Like I cannot. This is too much. I remember going to bed and I woke up. It was 2:34 in the morning. I woke up and there was like a voice. And I often tell people I don't know if it was a voice, like an audible voice, or if it was just a voice that had been stirring inside my soul for so long. And it was this: the cavalry ain't coming. It ain't coming, girl. It is not coming. You have to do the work to heal so that you can move forward and that you can help be a voice to other people who feel the way you do right now. And that was what really stirred my soul. I remember thinking that when I woke up, when I went back to sleep and I actually woke up, I remember calling one of the women from the group. I go, I'm here to do the work. I'm here to do the healing. I require the healing. I deserve it. And so that I can then demonstrate to others that there is help, that you do not have to live broken and confused for the rest of your life because you lost someone to suicide. And that work led me to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And now I'm a regional board member and I get to work with so many amazing people, get to hear the story of so many amazing people, particularly, and folks in my community who are Black. The Black community, mental health is not something that's talked about very often.
Correct.
And it's definitely, particularly around suicide. So what I found working with this organization and doing some of the local meetings and the regional meetings is that people were so happy to have someone who they can see and say, your story is my story. And it just opens up the door, even just with other communities of color and the LGBTQIA plus community.
Yes.
Or just communities typically that are typically marginalized, to see folks in the space that look like them open the door and gave the permission, or the invitation, I should say, the invitation to say that if they're doing the work to heal, then maybe I can do it too. And that has been, that was a gift that my brother gave me. And I always say he's given that gift to so many other people because I did not know the people that I would meet as a result of the gift my brother gave me, the gift of healing, things that I even know that required my attention, that weren't even connected to him dying by suicide. So that was really a catalyst to really stir some things, and even the types of meaningful conversations that I've been able to have with other family members and clients, because of that, what happened with my brother has literally changed the trajectory of my life for the better. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That and how powerful, and my heart goes out to you.
Thank you.
And for sure, and everything that you've endured, and paying attention to that, even that 2:34 a.m. moment that you recognized as the shift that you were so desperately looking for, and maybe didn't even know you were looking for that because you had resigned yourself to all that you had shared. And but again, being open when that happened, you could have just been like, oh, it was a dream. You could have completely ignored and dismissed it, but you didn't. You paid attention to it. And that helped you to move forward. You called the friend that was in your group, and that moved you forward. And again, the theme is like cannonball here. Look at the cannonball effect that your choice had on so many people that otherwise might not have felt connected in the space that you're doing this work.
I'm telling you, and it is so rewarding for me to hear the stories, just the stories of survival, and people coming and people learning to move on in their life, right? Not getting over, but learning to move forward in the way that honors them, and just reminding people that now you get to live in honor of love for that person, that everything you do from this point will circle back to the love that you share with that person that you died so tragically of suicide. Because this is what I learned. I learned that life indeed is the master teacher. It is the master teacher. Life will teach us things that a school, a book, a workshop, and nothing can teach us. If we pay attention, just like what you said, if we pay attention, life will teach us everything we require for the next step on our journey. It is indeed the master teacher.
It is, absolutely. And the perspective that you have, right? And you know,
Yes.
just also as an aside, and just have to share gratitude, you know, I'm pretty sure you knew this by trade. I've been a psychotherapist for 16 years. So I'm constantly doing assessments, and I'm constantly doing safety assessments, and I'm working with clients who are, you know, having suicidal ideation and everything in between. So there's so much gratitude that I have for not only everything that you've been through, but for the work that you're choosing to do in honor of your brother.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank you.
it's my heart goes out, because that is so instrumental to, you know, families who have also lost loved ones, friends who have lost loved ones,
Yes.
people who are going through that themselves in any capacity, that there needs to be more Larissas in the world who are
Yes.
doing this work.
And yes, because the stigma that's associated with suicide is incredibly shaming. And so it is incredibly shaming. And so for folks to have a conversation that's filled with compassion, empathy, it makes a difference. Speaking of Clubhouse, which is how we met,
Yes.
I have in my bio that, I lost my brother Ernest to suicide. And I get so many DMs. I get so many DMs from people asking, hey, can you help me? I just lost my so-and-so by suicide. And I know that had I not done the work, that had I not dug deep to do the work of my own healing, I wouldn't be able to be a resource to so many people, saying, okay,
Right.
I'm not a therapist, but I
Right.
can provide you with the resources to help you on your journey.
Right.
And it is so incredibly rewarding. The more we tell our story, whatever it is, like not becoming our story, but the more
That's
we
right.
talk about what we've learned from our story, what the lessons we've learned, what we've able to give to others because of it, it really does serve as a demonstration of what's possible when we raise our hand and say we're willing to do what's required to change the trajectory, to turn this pain into something that can be incredibly beautiful for ourselves and for other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that. And not feeling that you're in a place right now where something like a profile on Clubhouse, on a social media platform, where you're able to say it and own it, and that and in turn people feel connected and reach out, and I'm sure that there are people who don't reach out, but because they've read what they've read from you, or because they've seen you or heard you, you've impacted them in a way that you otherwise wouldn't have, for sure. So I commend you 100% on that, on more than 100%, with all of the work that you've decided to do in that area too.
Thank you
which
very
is
much.
great. Of course. And even the whole scope of our conversation today, Larissa, and everything from where you started in HR to having that cold water in the face moment where you recognize that this was not what was meant for you, and you pivoted when you were in your 40s into something that you feel whole about, and are doing the work that you want to do in your life, and creating a life that you want to create for yourself on your own terms, which is amazing, which is simply amazing. And I even loved what you said, that, hoping that women who are, I guess, I hate to say it, but younger than us, right?
Yeah.
Women who are in that, but having the ability to say, in the younger generations, if this isn't feeling right to me, I don't have to be stuck. I don't have to stay in a position. And whether it's younger women or women who are, Generation X women or above, or that you don't have to stay stuck in the place that you are. And do you remember when we were talking before we pressed record, you said a phrase? Do you remember the phrase that you said?
I do remember the phrase.
Yes, drop it, because I think that
phrase.
That is all encompassing. What is the phrase that you dropped?
Yes, the phrase is, step one is way better than step none. And it really is the truth. Step one, just take the first step, because I believe most people, particularly the crowd of women that you attract, probably all know that the closer we move to the thing, the closer the thing moves to us. And it is true. I think about my life right now. I can't even imagine if I were going to, and I had a crazy mad woman commute. I was commuting because where I live, and I took a train to the Bay Area Monday through Friday. So I was taking 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the. I know,
Wow.
crazy.
4 hours a day.
Girl, it's bananas. And I would even tell myself, when I first started when I took that first step, that even if I were able to do like the 4 hours that I'm using on commute, just imagine if I could use those 4 hours to do something else that was going to make a big difference, make a really dent in what I wanted in my life.
Oh my God,
but
yes.
back to that quote about step one is far better than step none. The truth of that is, when we're just sitting around thinking about it, it's exhausting and we get nowhere and we start to get discouraged. But literally, that first step can be anything. That first step can be making a phone call. That first step can be setting up a lunch or coffee appointment with someone who's doing the thing that you want to do. The first step can be hiring a coach. The first step can be any of those things. It can be taking a workshop. That first step, because when you go to that workshop, you're going to meet 6 other people who are in that same boat, and you're like, oh my gosh, so now you're building this community. You hire a coach, your coach can see this bird's eye view, and they're saying, oh, I can help you with stress. So it's all these things. It doesn't happen until we take the first step, and that first step becomes so incredibly magical, and it opens you up. Like I couldn't even imagine, doing the things that I'm doing right now with my career, the relationships that I've been able to, I have teenagers, and I tell people, yes, it's important to be with your children when they're little, but I'm telling you, when they start growing those boobies and they start getting a little bit more curves, you really want to be with them. You really want to be able to help them navigate some things.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. I had this very dialogue when I was a school social worker for many, many years, in addition to being a therapist. And I remember when I had my daughter, I wasn't able to stay at home right away. And I was so stressed out about that. And I remember my boss, I loved her to death. She was just such a straight to the point, like honest, straight shooter, didn't sugarcoat. She looked at me and she said, she had been doing the work in schools for a long. She goes, let me tell you something. Everybody wants to be at home with their kids when they're babies. But when you really need to be home with your kids is between middle school and high school. That's when they're going to need you. That's when they're not going to want you home, but that's when you're going to need to be there the most. So that is confirming that 100%. And look at where you are right now.
Oh my gosh, it's like your child's like, Mom, are you still here? Yes, I sure am. I sure am. But it's really when you wanted to have those conversations, those heart-to-heart conversations where that comfortability, and because of course we're demonstrating to them as well how we're moving and navigating in the world, and they're watching everything it is that we do. Like they're watching all of it. So and I tell people that, you're never too late. You're never too old, because things are never going to be as horrible or even as amazing as you think they're going to be. Right? That balance, that harmony is somewhere in the middle, but we won't know that until we take that first step. That's
right. And it's better than no step. First step is better than no step.
That's right.
I love that. And even to the point for viewers watching who are parents and have children, I think that idea of being a mirror also, not just being there for your kids to have the conversation, but if I'm stepping out of my comfort and I'm taking steps and doing things that aren't so easy, but I know are going to be so beneficial on the other side, we're mirrors for our kids. So if we want our kids to be able to do that, we sure as hell better demonstrate that ourselves. And how wonderful that your girls have seen you pivot from where you were into where you are now, because that is setting the tone for them that they can do it too.
It is so true. And it's so awesome. My husband and I, we've unschooled our children. We've world schooled our children. And that's been, even while I was working full time, we were very strategic with our schedules, and we had other people help us out with some co-ops. But when I made that pivot into entrepreneurship and started my own, became a broker, my oldest daughter said to me, Mom, I want to do what you do. And I was like, are you kidding me? All these years in HR, you never once said you wanted to do HR. And I've always been the person to say, HR is such a great profession for women because of blah, 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 right? And so literally after about a year of doing what I do now, she's like, Mom, I want to do what it is you do. So she's my apprentice now. So I take her out with me to meet with clients twice a week. So, she's in college, she's taking college courses, but so she comes out with me as an apprentice. And I'm telling you, my chest, and I walk just a little bit straighter, knowing that my daughter wants to do what it is I do. And that's
awesome.
priceless. And my youngest daughter said to me one day, like, Mom, you are such a badass boss.
Love it.
Wow, yes. Because she said, you left the job that you liked and that was providing well for our family, and you switched it. And now we get so much more time with you. You're doing what it is you enjoy doing. You replace your income. I'm telling you, you can't make this up. And if I had not taken that first step, none of this would have been possible. I would not have been able to have these meaningful conversations with my children, the other opportunities that have opened up, being able to meet with you and connect with your amazing audience. None of that would have been possible. None of it. Because I would have been so stuck in my head. And step one is far better than step none.
That's right. And the cannonball happening, right? And in every place. And sometimes we don't think about these pockets with our children and with everything else, but they're so important because all of these pockets are part of this. And I think a lot of people don't see, and I certainly, I know, like when I first started doing all of those things I'm doing, I didn't see those pockets. I just saw, can I do this or can I not do this? And what are the risks and I didn't see everything. But now that it's unfolding, and even Larissa, with what you're sharing, those are the magic moments. Those are the moments that make it so worth it on those days that we just want to lay in bed or binge watch a Netflix show. Those are the days that remind us why we're doing what we're doing. So that is fantastic. And I appreciate you stepping into the place that you stepped into so that we could align together. And we were able to meet in that capacity because we both chose to do things, right? If we hadn't made those decisions, we wouldn't have aligned and we wouldn't be here sharing with our audience today.
And even, you taking your idea from Clubhouse to now YouTube, to a different platform where that's going to reach even more people, right? It started with you having an idea of impacting and enriching women's life. Because here's the funny thing. I would see your club oftentimes, like in my hallways on Clubhouse, but I could never join. It was just the timing was just off. It was always right before I went to a client. And then finally, when I was able to make it, I knew that these were my people. Because these were people talking about how do you take what you have and now being able to extend that to other people, to other women, to show them what is possible. We are a walking billboard for what's possible when we are committed to taking the first step. Correct.
I love it. This is awesome. I'm so grateful for you and for this interview and for you sharing your story with our audience and just being here and open to do that. So much appreciation. I ask everybody, Larissa, who's on here, I know that we got the information from you and all of your links and all of your contact information is going to be posted on the show, but I also love people to say it verbally. So if people are listening and connecting and identifying with you and they're like, I need to reach out to her, what is the best way that people can reach out to you?
The best way to reach out to me right now would definitely be social media. So I'm on Facebook, which is my name, Larissa Poree. Also on Instagram, which is Universal Love Junkie, which is the name of my agency, Universal Love Insurance Group. And it was a name that my daughters gave to me. So of course, I'm going to keep any name they give to me. If your child calls you a Universal Love Junkie, like I'm keeping it.
I'm going to use that name.
So, Universal Love Junkie. So that is the name. And then of course on Clubhouse, my name again, Larissa Poree. I do have a show that's coming out, which is a television show, which is called The Level of Courage with Larissa Poree. So that's going to be on wherever you watch your streaming platforms. And I'm super duper looking forward. The first show will be dropping later on this year. So I'm looking forward to that. And I will definitely keep you posted with that. Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes. And of course, we can share any links if they're available for that as well, because that's something we need to keep an eye out for, because that's going to be fire. That's going to be pure fire right there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So thank you again, Larissa, for being here. Appreciate your time, space, and energy. And as we often close the show, remember everybody, if I'm messing up my own line here, but this is real life.
Real life.
Real life, just because you've done everything in life that you're supposed to do does not mean that you've done everything that you're meant to do. Thank you so much for being here, Larissa. Again, appreciate you. And we will catch Yes, and we will catch you guys on the next episode.